Good morning. I'm Savitri Dias, Senior Lecturer, University of Colombo, Department of English Language Teaching. And today I will be talking to you on three topics on Introduction to Early Childhood Education. Topic 1 on Introduction to Early Childhood Education. Topic 2, Ideas and Theories that Influence Early Childhood Education. And thirdly, theories of learning development. So the first topic on Introduction to Early Childhood Education, I will just summarize the lesson for you so that it will be much more clearer when you follow the lecture. Okay. So early childhood education refers to educational programs and strategies geared towards children from birth to the age of 8. Early childhood education often focuses on guiding children to learn through play. For young children, care and education are interdependent and inseparable. To encourage and facilitate an increased educational component in the area of childcare, there should be great interaction and coordination between the education, childcare, and health sectors. And there are some terminologies of early childhood education that need to be defined and understood by early childhood educators. So, to be a professional in early childhood education, a teacher should understand the basic concepts of early childhood education and master the relevant knowledge and skills relating to early childhood education. So some of the key terms that you will come across are Child Act 2001, Child Care Center Act 308, Early Childhood Care and Education, Early Childhood Education, Early Childhood Philosophy, Early Childhood Professionals, Education Act 1996, Holistic Development, Preschool Education, Quality Early Care and Education. So these are some of the key terms that you will be learning and hearing about. The learning outcomes for the first topic. State the basic concepts of early childhood education. Explain the key terms used in early childhood education. Describe the role of professionals of early childhood education. So, a child is generally defined as a person who has yet to attain adulthood and who has a set of characteristics that distinguishes them from adults. A child as a person who is under the age of 18, placing them below the legal age of majority. And this would be from the birth of the child up to about 8 years of age. So in the first stage, that is from the birth of 3 years of age, a child is called a baby and thereafter a toddler. And after that, he or she is called a preschooler. And whether it is up to the age of 5 or 7 years depends from country to country, because different countries have different school-going ages. The globally accepted and adopted definition of early stage of childhood encompasses the first 8 years of life, according to Morrison. And so when we talk of the concept of early childhood education, it refers to educational programs and strategies tailored specifically for children from birth to the age of 8 years. And at that age, the young minds are most vulnerable and impressionable. And it says education is the deliberate activity of helping learners to develop understanding and skills, according to Ball and Fazani in 2008. It is a holistic approach, and it encompasses teaching, learning, content, and the environment. All four are very important. And teaching is certainly very important, but what the child or the children themselves bring in to the education process is equally important. So, education is not just a process of implementing a set of ideas and methods and content. It must be a continual development process of exploration where the teacher takes the cues from the children, not only the children but their families and the background and the environment. And it also requires spacing learning activities according to the needs of the children, and while projecting expectations that stretch the children beyond their current abilities at any given moment. So we have to see that the child goes beyond what he is already doing. So we talk of care and education. So both here we have to think that care and education go hand in hand. Both are equally important. And most people say that caring is associating caring with feeling, and it is not an intellectual activity. But actually caring can be an intellectual activity. For example, we say if you change a diaper of a child, that gives you an opportunity to pay a very close attention to the child, to gather information about his interest, his curiosity, and also develop new ideas of learning from the child. So we say caring is both a feeling and a set of actions. Fondness, feeling, and care grows as we take care of babies and children. And also it's very important, according to Jones 2007, say people need to care to retain their humanity. So caring for a child is one way of retaining our humanity. So see what Mastura in 2006 says. For young children, care and education are interdependent and inseparable. In order to encourage, facilitate, an increased educational component of childcare, there should be a coordination between education, care, and health services. Children should be brought up and nurtured in provisions that fully integrate care and education. So care and education cannot be separated from each other, especially in the early childhood education. Penn in 2003 says, children who have had educational input in their care tend to show cognitive gains when they get to school, as cited by Evans. The educational component in their care appears to be beneficial. So when in their homes, if the parents or the carers can give them some cognitive input, that goes a long way when they go to school. Ball 1994 says those whose primary concern is the health of the child need to understand that good early learning is a critical part of healthy growth. Those whose primary concern is education need to understand that good teachers should know but also must care. So education without care doesn't work. So another important aspect of early childhood education is learning through play. So the focus of early childhood education is more often than not guiding children to learn through play. Play is an ideal way for children to learn about themselves, their environment, and the people and the world around them. Children learn to solve problems and interact with each other as they play. So their creativity is enhanced, leadership skills are developed, social interaction is improved, and they develop healthy personalities. And also play helps children to develop the skills they would require, how to learn and how to read and write at a later stage. So, we talk of the best foundation for learning in early childhood education. We say play in early childhood is important. Physically, a child's gross motor skills are developed as he learns to grasp, to reach, crawl, run, climb, and balance. And the fine motor skills and dexterity are honed when he handles toys and other objects. As he interacts and plays with other children and even adults, language capacity expands. So, as an infant, cooing games with the parents. So, as the parents coo to their children, they babble, and what happens? Eventually, that is what evolves into the language ability. And so, while the parents can share stories with them, all that helps them to improve their language ability. And also, through play and imagination, a child can fulfill wishes to overcome fears and unpleasant experiences. So, see how important play is in early childhood education. Play helps the child to master his own environment, and the child will feel safe, secure, successful, and capable. And they acquire important components of positive emotional health. And sharing play experiences also can create strong bonds between parents and children. So we come the importance of early childhood education. A report compiled in 1996 showed that OECD, that is the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, in countries such as Japan, Korea, Europe, Canada, and others, had made wide strides in the study of quality initiatives regarding the importance of good early childhood education. And the US Legislative Council says early childhood education is critical to the nation's economic position because it provides members of the next generation of workers with the solid foundation of skills, competencies, attitudes, and behaviors that will enhance and ensures their success in a more technologically based and competitive future economic environment. So according to the State Legislature Council USA in 2004. So what the early childhood education gives to the infants and toddlers of today will build a strong economic foundation of the country tomorrow. And the child development experts and child psychologists have determined that the first 6 years of life of a child's life is the most crucial and the rapid stage of development in the life of a human person. Child psychologists believe that the years between birth and 4 years of age is the time when more than half of the intellectual development of children takes place, with a further 1/3 completes the development of a child upon the reaching the age of 8. So we can see the intellectual development of a person. It's done between birth and the age of 8. So according to Breadcamp and Koppel in 1997, what does it say? It says, in the first 3 years of life, children learn or fail to learn how to get along with others. Remember, learn or fail to learn to get along with others. How to resolve disputes peacefully, how to use language as a tool of learning and persuasion, and how to explore the world without fear. And brain research reveals that most of the connections that will be maintained throughout life are formed during childhood. So now you can do this activity and just see what you can do. What do you understand by the term early childhood education? So discuss the answer with your classmates and list some of the reasons you think a society should educate its children. So that also you can discuss in groups. Why should the society educate its children? Give some reasons. And self-check 1.1 is very important. What is involved in the process of caring for and educating young children? Why can't the care and education of children be separated? So find the answers to that. That's very important. You just go through your module and you will find the answers to these two important questions. So now in the learning outcomes we said, first of all, state the basic concepts of early childhood education and explain the key terms used in early childhood education. So here's some of the terminology used in early childhood education. In the study of early childhood education, there are important terms and phrases which must be properly learnt and understood in its entirety. So for the first one, you said the philosophy of early childhood education. Each and every child care service of learning center should have its own mission statement or philosophy to abide by. So the mission statement or the philosophy is very important. And how do you develop this philosophy? Through reading, reflection, discussion, and evaluation. And early childhood educators should be able to describe how this philosophy guides the process of learning in children as well as other practices the center adopts, such as daily routines and other events. So these terminology, these words, this vocabulary is very important as early childhood educators. And the family community partnership, that is also important. The primary educators of children are first and foremost the parents themselves. So the early childhood education should rightly be a complementary partnership between the home and the care and the education center. It is not an isolation. It is not in isolation. There has to be a partnership between the home and the education center. Caregivers and educators at such centers for child care and early childhood education need to know that children they work with and be aware of their backgrounds, family, culture, and community. So the early childhood educator should have a close link with the family and the environment and the family backgrounds, the culture in the family and the community. And here, these three, the outcomes for children, disposition, empowerment, and engagement are three important factors. What is disposition? It refers to the combination of a child's emerging knowledge, skills, and attitudes to learning. So whether he is curious or creative or he's friendly, or what is his disposition? So the early childhood educators have to be aware and study it. And then empowerment. Empowering a child will help him or her to develop a strong and healthy sense of self as capable and confident learning. So if the carers, if the educators study the dispositions of the children, they can further empower their creative ability of these children and to make them confident learners. And then comes the engagement. Drawing the child into the lesson and engaging their attention and participation is important for a meaningful learning experience. So a child-initiated play, which is interesting and satisfying, which will create an interest in the child. It is up to the educators to engage the child in creative and interesting activities. We talk about holistic development. What does that mean? All aspects of a child's learning and development are interrelated. So holistic is the whole, the caring, the cognitive ability, the activities, the motor skills. That is how you study, we know whether this is a holistic development. So encouraging and nurturing the development of a child should be a holistic endeavor that addresses the physical, emotional, social, intellectual, and also the spiritual aspects. We talk about quality early care and education. Early childhood care and education programs of high standards and quality would inevitably and naturally create a safe and nurturing environment. So that's very important. And it would foster and promote physical, social, emotional, and intellectual development in a young child. So the educational background, where the quality of the programs are all very important. And how would you know the development of a child? It is through observation, documentation, and assessment. Those are key approaches to supporting and encouraging such development in a child. So the early childhood developers, the educators, have to observe and document and assess the development of the children who are under their care. The early childhood education curriculum, that is another important factor. So what is the curriculum of early childhood programs? It should include the experiences, the learning opportunities, activities that are offered to children at the care and education center to nurture their development. So there has to be a curriculum which is geared to the development of the children. There must be clearly defined goals and objectives, that is very important, which are supported by a list of activities. So we just can't run a child education center in an ad hoc way. This would form the framework for decision making and the sourcing of supporting learning materials, and it can also be the basis of a comprehensive approach for fostering the holistic development of a child, according to Mastura 2006. And this aspect is very important. Children with diverse or special needs, identified as those children who have physical or intellectual disabilities or behavioral or learning problems. So there are such children. If there are such children, they would require extra attention, support, and assistance to fully participate in all the programs offered by the care and education centers. These children also have equal rights to good and quality education. So the child care and education centers therefore need to incorporate methods, special methods to include and cater for these children in their programs and services. We talk about the environment for early childhood education. What does that mean? The physical setting is important. Learning resources and materials, the relationship between the children and the caregivers, and also the dynamics and relationships among the family members themselves, all form the environment. When you talk of environment, all this is important, and it is important for early childhood education. Then about the child caregivers and early childhood education. Who are they? So the service providers and teachers who handle the daily activities. And they are responsible for the planning and implementing lessons and providing guidance and teaching. they have to also assess the progress of the children and evaluate their learning, and create a nurturing learning environment to pave the way for meaningful learning experiences. Then comes the management and administration of early childhood care and education centers. So the management and administration contributes significantly to the positive experience and efficacy of childhood learning and development. Administrators in this field are responsible for the overall operations and to implement programs with diverse roles and responsibilities. They are responsible for the program itself, the staff, the health and safety issues, and everything else are carried out according to the regulations. They have to see the administrators have this great responsibility. And also the health and safety. The health and safety of the children is a vital component of this service. So the centers are responsible for the health and safety of all children while they are within the facilities as the center. So there are regulations which define the minimum standards required for health and safety. So there are government regulations which have to be adhered to, otherwise the license to run the center, childhood education center, will not be granted. So we have an activity here. List all terms used in early childhood education that you have learnt in this section. So these are what we discussed. What does each term or phrase mean to you? Can you include your own ideas into a definition? Write it down and find the terminology and its meaning from the internet and present your findings. So we discussed several phrases which were important for early childhood education. So do you have anything extra to add to it? You can find out from the internet and create your own program or your own material with the terminology. And the self-check is define what is meant by the philosophy of early childhood education and why do we need to study the holistic development of children. So we talked about holistic education, holistic development. So why do we as early childhood educators study it and be aware of what holistic development of a child is? So now we come to another important area. Describe the role of professionals of early childhood education. So who is an early childhood professional? A person who teaches young children, has high personal standards and continually expands his or her skills and capabilities. So it has to be a continuous process of improving your personal standards and skills and capabilities, and maintain the high standards for themselves and also promote such standards in their colleagues and students. So continued improvement, expansion of skills and knowledge are should be a part of their daily lives. And they must be very well prepared and be continually developing and growing professionally. So if you are professional, if you have improved, and then a good compensation for these personnel is also important factor and should commensurate with the qualifications and experiences. So the compensation should also be equal to the professional qualifications and the experience that an early childhood educator possesses. And it says, caregivers and educators who have completed more years of formal education and undergone specialized training in early childhood education or child development are able to provide a richer and more meaningful experience to the young children. So that is why specialized training and experience is important. So according to Connor, Morrison and Slominski, 2006. It says also, experience alone is not enough to provide effective care. So some of these early childhood educators would have so many years of experience but no specialized education on it. So that is not enough. The formal education and specialized training of a practitioner are amongst the most critical elements to ensure positive outcomes for the children. So, the figure 1.2 in your module will show the necessary skills of an early childhood professional. So, these three aspects have to be interrelated: personal and social skills, professional skills, and practical skills. So as I said earlier, so this is the summary of early childhood education. Refers to educational programs and strategies geared towards children from birth to the age of 8. Early childhood education focuses on guiding children to learn through play. For young children, care and education are interdependent and inseparable. To encourage and facilitate an increased educational component, there are some terminologies of early childhood education that need to be defined and understood by early childhood educators. That is what we did. So, to be a professional in early childhood education, a teacher should understand the basic concepts of early childhood education and master the relevant knowledge and skills relating to early childhood education. So this one, just reflect on this. Think of a teacher who had a great influence on you. Write one-page statement describing the characteristics of this teacher and some examples of how he or she was a role model. And share your story with your classmates in small group discussions. And the self-check. Do you think that academic knowledge is important for someone working in early childhood care and educational organizations? Why? What do you think are new roles for early childhood professionals today? So these are the key terms that I discussed earlier. Child Act, child care centers, early childhood education, child care development, childhood education, early childhood philosophy, childhood professionals, Educational Act, holistic development, preschool education, quality care and education. So, thank you very much. So that is the end of the topic 1.